Hey everyone, it's Brent Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. A few days ahead of Christmas and started my winter break off from work, so I figured for this video I got some recent Calgary Stampeders news. So I'll bring out, this is not a heritage, or it's a heritage sweater, not Christmas ugly sweater theme, but figure I might as well break it out for this video, as we have already been making some changes in the off season heading into the 2025 season. Well, this video will talk about who will be on the sidelines for the Calgary Stampeders in terms of completing their coaching staff, break down the names, and then we'll touch upon where a few members of the coaching staff this past season are going elsewhere in the CFL, and some quarterbacks have already made some changes, including here in Calgary, where we have Fred Adams Jr. will be our starter in 2025. But before I get into the story itself, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I have my other social media links down in the description below. Well, let's talk about who is going to be on the Calgary Stampeders coach staff for 2025. Well, we already knew that I made a video last month that we have decided to hang on to Dave Dickenson, as he is going to remain as both head coach and general manager. We can debate on if that's the right move when we moved on from Mark Kilam, Brent, Monson, and Juwan Simpson. So that left some holes on the coaching staff sidelines, and the priority that the off-season news was the Calgary Stampeders are looking to finalize their staff for 2025 just for Christmas, and they did do that. And let's debate about some names. We'll touch upon some of the credentials of the coaches that are on the staff, and there's some interesting names that some younger coaches that had some great careers as players are now here in Calgary. So first being the head job, the head coach and general manager will still be Dave Dickenson. We can remain to be seen if that's still the right move on both him having both titles, but we need to also look at the players on the field as well this season, and we're still a few months away from free agency. Also returning to the Calgary Stampeders is Pat Delmonico, who has been the offensive coordinator for most of the time, but he also has added on the offensive line coach. So Dave Dickenson is still here, same with Pat Delmonico. Well, he's going to be now the new defensive coordinator, who's been around on the coach staff. Some of it's just moving titles around, kind of similar to, like, let's say, a government doing a cabinet shuffle, which, let's say, that's another topic somewhere else about that's happening recently in Canada. But Bob Slowick, he is now the defensive coordinator, where you could say that was the position that Brent Monson had. And then filed this in the not-so-surprised department. He has experience coaching around in the CFL, and he has actually coached in Calgary before actually started his coaching career in Calgary. Craig Dickenson, yes, the older brother of Dave Dickenson. Most recently, he was a special advisor on the coaching staff for the Calgary Stampeders, but previous years to that, he had some head coaching experience with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Craig Dickenson is now the special teams coordinator. We probably saw this a mile away when Calgary decided to move on from Mark Kilam, when Craig Dickenson has had experience as special teams coordinator, but I guess, I saw this coming. So Craig Dickenson is now the special teams coordinator. He actually was originally, I first heard about that Dave Dickenson had an older brother. I think this was back in 2000. That Craig Dickenson actually worked on the team under Wally Bonham. So he has lots of experience, but it's just the optics that we could debate about. He's replacing Mark Kilam, and I'll touch upon where Mark Kilam is going for 2025. So continue on with the staff. Well, Bo Baldwin, who is still the quarterback's coach, one of the catalysts for the Calgary Stampeders in acquiring Vernon Adams Jr., as Bo Baldwin actually did coach Vernon Adams Jr. Eastern Washington when he was still playing in college. So there's some connection there why the two have happened. Some new faces for the terms of coaching staff, but more players in the CFL, including with the Calgary Stampeders. Well, Marcus Howell, the former, well, he actually was very versatile when he played for the Calgary Stampeders, as he first played with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, then it was the defunct Ottawa Renegades, and then we picked him up in the dispersal draft. Marcus Howell is now the new receivers coach, replacing Nick Lewis, and I'll touch upon where he's going, because he didn't get let go last month, but he's not returning. But Marcus Howell, he did play receiver, linebacker, and returns, so he's very versatile. So he is now, for the first time in his CFL post-playing career, being a coach with the Calgary Stampeders. Well, another former player who actually has played with the Calgary Stampeders, and fairly more recently, is Montgomery Williams. He is actually going to be both the running backs coach and the assistant offensive line coach, so he'll be working with Pat Delmonico in that department, and someone who actually was literally in the trenches as an offensive lineman. So be interesting to see how that goes, because he did play with the Calgary Stampeders. He was on the 2018 team. Should mention Marcus Howell was on the 2008 Grey Cup team, but Montgomery Williams did have his last season in the CFL with the Ottawa Redblacks when we moved on from him as a player. And then here's a legendary player for a defensive line coach in John Bowman. Yeah, John Bowman, the long time. He played most of his career, I think all of his playing career in the CFL. Remember him mostly with the Montreal Alouettes. Well, he is now going to be here in Calgary as the defensive line coach, and I do feel that the defense probably did need a new refresh, because Calgary last season, despite having guys like Mike Alley, Cameron Judge, and then Juwan Hauser, as well as James Vaughters, we didn't have as many sacks. And you think with that group that we had, we should have more sacks and tackles. So it makes sense that we did make some changes in the defensive line, assuming all those players will be coming back. And then a couple more players that to round up the coaching staff. One I'm not quite as familiar with is Marcus Klund, who is going to be the linebackers coach and the run game coordinator. So we'll see if this team can have a new philosophy on terms of running the offense as well. Because what I'll touch upon is a lot of these coaches who have already had some coaching experience have coached elsewhere in the CFL, all come together here. So hopefully maybe it'll be a blended on from their outside point of view, saying what was the weakness of the Calgary Stampeders this past season. Then the last name to add to the team, another player that played predominantly with the Montreal Alouettes as well as the BC Lions, is Baron Miles. He'd be the defensive backs coach. So I'm going to say, of all the names that we got added to the staff, well, not surprised about Craig Dickenson, but he has been around in the CFL for a couple decades, and gotta say, there's the bloodline connection. I'm intrigued by the Marcus Howell addition, and same with Montgomery Williams, both players that have played with the Stampeders and won the Grey Cup with in different eras. And as well as just seeing John Bowman on the sideline, as remember him mostly all with the Montreal Alouettes. And then the other the coaches that have moved on, well, Dwayne Cameron, who did serve as defensive back coach, he will still be with the Calgary Stampeders, and it was another hat that he took on, because he mostly was the player personnel with the director of Canadian Scouting and as well as the U.S. Scout. That was another title that he added on for this past season. So I think maybe that would be nice that he can focus more on the scouting thing, hasn't been pulled into the coaching, because I know that there's this coaching cap, which I don't quite understand that in the CFL how that works, but it looks like we have a few more personnel on the sideline this season than we did last season. And then touching on Nick Lewis, well, Nick Lewis and the Calgary Stampeders decided to move on because Nick Lewis decided that he wants to give up coaching for now, and pursuing other business adventures. So that's why we have a lot more new faces on the staff in terms of moving on from the 3 people that we moved on from. So I'll put the story in the description below. But as mentioned, that Marcus Howell, he was on the team that won the Grey Cup in 2008. Cameron Williams was on the 2018 team, so you got 2 former players that played for Calgary and won with Calgary in the past. And then when I mentioned that the new coaches that coming in, because we look on that John Bowman, he did play with the Montreal Alouettes. He also did coach with the BC Lions most recently in 2013, where he actually was coaching under Matthew Betts, who was one of the sack leaders, most signed defensive player in 2013. So hopefully that could maybe boost up, because Calgary was one of the weaker teams in the league on stats. I think it was Jalen Hauser that ultimately led the team in sacks, but when you look at the names that we have for the linebackers, I thought we should have more fear in the opponents, as I should say. And then Craig Dickenson, he's been around the league. I mentioned that he's 30 years of coaching both in the sides of the border in terms of the CFL, NFL, as least just collegiate. He was with Saskatchewan as a head coach. He was a part of the Edmonton Elks or Edmonton Eskimos in 2015, and as I mentioned, that he did coach with the Calgary Stampeders many times, including he was on the staff. I remember back in 2000, he actually was a part of the staff in 2008, so he has been around. Craig Dickenson, of course, the bloodlines with Dave. And then Barry Miles, defensive backs coach, mentioned mostly he played with the Alouettes and the Lions. And then he actually did coach most recently with the Montreal Alouettes and then the Ottawa Red Blacks recent years. And I think the Ottawa Red Blacks has had a solid defense the last few years. Hopefully maybe he can provide some more perspective to the defensive backs. That's the position that he played well at in the league. And then Marcus Howell, the receivers coach, as I mentioned, he played for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the Ottawa Renegades, and then we claimed him on the dispersal draft to play with the Calgary Stampeders. He also had some time coaching as well, most recently with the Edmonton Elks, believe it or not. So we do have some former Elks coming here, including Marcus Kuhn, which don't have as much knowledge on him as he is fairly new, but he has extensive coaching experience elsewhere in the U.S. He did spend some time both with Edmonton and Saskatchewan, so nice to see that pollination with the enemy teams. And then the Calgary Roans, he's pretty much a new coach, as he did play with Calgary and one season with the Ottawa Red Blacks, and then he most recently coached at Russell County High School in Salem, Alabama. So I think we have a nice diverse group of coaches coming in to the Calgary Stampeders with some cross-pollination from other teams most recently that maybe could help with the Calgary Stampeders this upcoming season. And I guess the last thing I'll talk about is the Bob Slowick, who has been the most experienced coach in the CFL, or not in CFL, but just in football in general, as this will be his 21st consecutive season as coach in the NFL, as he started as a defensive assistant on the Dallas Cowboys, where he was on the Super Bowl team in 1992, and he was on the Washington Redskins from 2010 to 2013. So that is the coaching story of everything when it comes to Calgary Stampeders. As mentioned, I'll put the link in the description below. So first, I'm going to say, with the staff in Calgary, what do you think of all the moves? I think there might be still some controversies in terms of decisions that were made especially I'm going to say both Craig Dickenson coming in as the special teams coordinator. I would have been shocked if he didn't get that job for this upcoming season, with the fact that Dave Dickenson is still both the head coach and general manager, but just like some of the newer past players that you're starting to see that next generation of coaches coming in. So now when it comes to who's going elsewhere, well, two of the three player coaches that we decided to move on from. I haven't heard any word on what's happening with Juwan Simpson in terms of where he is coaching elsewhere, at least in the CFL, or I haven't heard any news on that. But when it comes to Brent Monson, at first it sounded like he was going to join the Toronto Argonauts coach staff. We were going to say, oh, another former Stampeder going to Toronto, but apparently there was snags in the contract. Actually, Brent Monson is going to be in Ontario, but coaching with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So Brent Monson will be coaching the defensive side of the ball in Hamilton next season. But Mark Kilam is going to make the Labor Day Classic a lot more interesting this upcoming season. As Mark Kilam, I guess you could say we did get Marcus Howell, for example, from the Edmonton Elks as well as a Marcus coach. But Mark Kilam is now going to be the head coach of the Edmonton Elks next season. So prepare some storylines for that, because the Edmonton Elks decided to move on from Jarius Jackson. He was just the interim head coach, but I personally still felt that here in Calgary, we should have decided to keep Dave Dickenson just general manager, promote Mark Kilam as head coach, because I think he did enough time here in Calgary to get the head coach staff. And over the years, when teams were looking for new coaches, especially a head coach, he always was considered. But now the fact that we moved on from him, he is now going to be coaching up in Edmonton, and that's something to watch out for. And also, when I did check on him, he actually is from Lethbridge, Alberta. So not only is he a Canadian, he's an Alberta-born coach. But I think with all the years that he was here in Calgary, it is going to look a little weird seeing him wearing the wrong colors, green and gold, up in Edmonton. Well, hopefully there not going to be some vendetta on Labor Day, but spice up the Labor Day Classic next season when the Battle of Alberta comes on. Or the schedule's not out yet, so I'm assuming at least we'll be playing Edmonton both on Labor Day and a rematch, but who knows, maybe there could be another game somewhere in the season. I know this past season we did play Edmonton 3 times, but twice at home. Edmonton sweeping Calgary all 3 times, but both Alberta teams didn't make the playoffs either this season. So that's where the coaches that we decided to move on from will be next season. So it's going to be interesting. And then when it comes to quarterbacks, well, we have Vernon Adams Jr. now when it comes to making that trade with the BC Lions. And I already made a video on that, but it looks like pretty much all the teams in the CFL, I'm going to say, at least have their number 1 quarterback solidified right now at this point in the offseason. I mean, BC, well, the fact that they were able to trade for an Adams Jr., and he did restructure his deal with the Calgary Stampeders that he is signed till 2026. I think he took a little bit of a discount, but I think he's still making almost $500,000 a season to be a starter, one of the higher paid quarterbacks in the league. But Nathan Rourke, I think he did sign for over $750,000 with the BC Lions, so that was why he was expendable. So BC is going to be going with Nathan Rourke as their starter. My Calgary Stampeders, they referred to Adams Jr. Saskatchewan Roughriders, they did actually decide to re-up with Trevor Harris. As long as you know, Trevor Harris will still be back with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Winnipeg, I'm sure they're still going to stay with Zach Collaros. And then when it comes to the Toronto Argonauts, well, I'm going to assume that they're going to keep Nick Arbuckle, who happened to win the Grey Cup MVP. Chad Kelly is still going to be there, but he's not going to be available to start the season after he got hurt in the East Final, but he'll still be there. And then Hamilton still has one more year left with Bo, as in Bo Levi Mitchell, which he definitely had a resurgence this past season. Looked like the Bo that was here in Calgary all season, but he definitely looked like Bo when he slaughtered us in Hamilton late in the season. And I intentionally left out Montreal and Edmonton till now because, well, Montreal, they did re-up with Davis Alexander, which made Cody Fajardo expendable. Well, ultimately, and then the fact that Davis Alexander got re-upped with the Montreal Alouettes and the Edmonton Elks, they actually did decide to re-sign Trey Ford, so that left two veterans in terms of Cody Fajardo and McLeod Bethel Thompson being somewhat expendable, while Montreal and Toronto actually did make a trade, essentially trading the rights. So Macbeth or McLeod Bethel Thompson, who was up in Edmonton this past season, did struggle in terms of getting wins. Well, his rights got traded to the Montreal Alouettes. Well, Cody Fajardo's rights, who he was injured for part of the year, was the starter. Then Davis Alexander filled in for him, but Davis Alexander is the younger quarterback. Well, Cody Fajardo's rights got traded to the Edmonton Elks. So I'm going to say a lot of teams I think have already at this stage have their number one quarterbacks figured out. In some cases, their number two quarterbacks filled as well. I'm going to say here in Calgary with Vernon Adams Jr. And the fact that we were signing P.J. Walker, he doesn't have any CFL experience, has some NFL experience. Hearing that, I did see that we were paying P.J. Walker over $200,000. I'm going to say that Majake Mayer, as well as Logan Bonner, Matthew Schultz, hopefully maybe keep Tommy Stevens as their short yards quarterback, are likely going to be moving on. So there's going to be still some more movement in the league. And every team essentially has, 30 or so free agents. I mean, Calgary did manage to keep, Aaron Crawford, the long snapper, and actually we're able to keep Jalen Philpott, have him locked up when it comes to receiver. And then we did sign Rene Paredes, the kicker, for 2 more years up to 2026. And I'm also looking forward to that year, especially the end of that season, because we're going to be hosting the big game, the 113th Grey Cup in 2026, and the dream is that Calgary will be in it and winning it, right? But we still got 2025 to look forward to. But I'm going to say I'll still come in with any Calgary Stampeders off-season news throughout. I'm sure I'll try to put in a free agency recap, whatever happens in free agency, both Calgary and Noble around the league. But we have at least our coaching staff named for 2025. Some intriguing storylines that have come out. I'm going to say the biggest one being that Mark Kilam, former longtime special teams coordinator and assistant coach here in Calgary, we decided to move on from, is now going to be coaching up in Edmonton. So that's going to be an instant storyline right there. And we'll see how Labor Day rates itself. So yeah, that's all I have for just Calgary Stampeders and CFL content just before Christmas. So as a close out, if I want to say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I have my other social media links down in the description below. I have to say, go Stamps go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.